All right, let's get into it. Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray, and the man behind the Youth Vote Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics director of polling, John Della Volpe. All right, Monica, this has been a 3-week stretch for Harris that's just been good news headline after good news headline. What can you tell us from the perspective of the campaign?
Yeah, and it's been a momentum wave, to use your language there, Katie, that they do want to keep riding, and they hope will continue this week into the Democratic National Convention, where they know all of the eyeballs will be upon them and where they are hoping to have this big major moment that is celebratory in nature, and where they hope a lot of this can kind of come together and Vice President Harris can formally accept that nomination and then hit that real typical sprint that you would see in September and October into November. But because we basically got a preview and a mini version of what that looks like over the last 3 weeks, there are a couple things that they're really very, very much focused on. And obviously in those initial days, it was picking a running mate for the vice president, which they feel that they did quite well, and which they've been very happy in the results of what they saw, they say, over the last couple of days in that battleground state tour. And you're showing on the screen there part of what they're so happy about, and it's the optics. It's being able to say that there hasn't been this kind of enthusiasm among Democrats in some time. And those crowds, which you know very well, are something that appear to have gotten under Donald Trump's skin in some capacity. That is also for them a major victory in this couple of weeks that they weren't necessarily anticipating. And I'm told by the campaign that when they're now talking about future events and future swing states, that the appeal and the real desire and what people want to see is so high that they don't even know how to find venues that will potentially accommodate all of that. So that is a good problem to have. But this week they get to the thornier part of it, and that's the actual policy rollout. They now have to focus on what Vice President Harris could run on that would be different from President Biden, what he was doing as a candidate, while also walking this fine line of trying to say that the Biden-Harris administration has had accomplishments, but here's what we could do. They're going to argue, and you're going to see that on display when they're together, the president and vice president, Thursday in Maryland, if she is the one to win the White House in November. But she has to start spelling out her vision for how she sees that, again, on a really compressed timeline, which we'll hear more about at the DNC.
You know,
as well.
the crowd size and the search for new and bigger arenas reminds me of 2016. There was always that search for new and bigger arenas for Donald Trump, and their advance man was constantly on the move doing that. So I understand what the Harris campaign is now going through. I'm sure the Democrats are absolutely thrilled to be in that position, to have to find a bigger capacity stadium. Mark, the enthusiasm that we're seeing on the ground is now translating into the numbers. I know we've been waiting for some better quality polling to come out, a little bit of time to have passed after the transition from Biden to Harris. What can you tell us about this new New York Times Siena poll? What do you see in it?
Yeah, it's just further confirmation that we have a reset contest, Katie, where you now have Harris ahead by 4 points in all 3 of these key battleground states. Importantly, within the margin of error, but that's actually a change from what we ended up seeing in the New York Times Siena surveys from back in the spring, as well as in Pennsylvania right after that debate in July. And Katie, really what stands out to me is just the popularity boost for Harris now becoming the Democratic standard bearer. In the Pennsylvania New York Times Siena poll from back in July, President Biden had a -20 net favorability rating, according to that poll. Compare that now with Harris at +2. That's a 22-point swing when it comes to favorability. Donald Trump's favorability numbers haven't changed all that much between July and now, but with the change at the top of the Democratic ticket might be the biggest change in all the polling that we have seen so far, with Harris now at the top of the ticket.
So Nick Cohn, who does the polling for the Times, helps to do it, says that what Harris is doing right now, Mark, is showing that she is the generic candidate. And he meant that in a good way. What does it mean for Harris to be running like a generic Democratic candidate? Why would that actually be a compliment?
It's a compliment because usually a generic candidate does better than someone whose name that has all the baggage and the issues and the scandals that end up getting litigated. And right now she's floating above a plane in which she's not having to deal with the policy rollouts, with the kind of negative attacks that you normally end up seeing. And Katie, one thing that we've seen consistently over the past year is how Democratic candidates like Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, like Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, even like Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, were always doing better than President Biden. That they were kind of almost that generic candidate, just basically the D candidate without any kind of baggage. And now all of a sudden we are seeing Vice President Kamala Harris do that at the top of the Democratic ticket. And to me, the biggest kind of question is this all part of the Democratic honeymoon that we've seen with the change at the top of the ticket, or will this end up lasting over the next 3 months? And I think the answer to that question could very well end up deciding this presidential contest.
So, John, I was looking at your polling on the youth vote, and I noticed that the graphs that you had from the age group to the demographics to college degree, without a college degree, Republican, Democrat, independent, this is not the one, but just the group of graphs that you had separating out each group of these potential voters, every single one of them ended up on a high note. Everyone right up. Kamala Harris started here and she ended up here. Tell me about that.
Sure. Well, Katie, you talked about this campaign reminds you of 2016. To me, this reminds me of 2008 and then 2018. In 2008, millennials banded together with the idea of something better in terms of the way in which our politics could be run and envisioned by Barack Obama. That hopefulness is something that I see in this new wave of polling. But in addition to that hopefulness, I also see the fight, the determination, the grit of Gen Zers after Parkland. This combination, I think, of the Obama plus the Parkland vibe and enthusiasm is, I think, what is driving these double-digit increases over the last 3 weeks. As you said, there is a plus 16-point increase in her favorability. There is a plus 13-point increase in her margin over Donald Trump. And every single subgroup within the electorate, a majority of those indicate they are more enthusiastic about her being on the ticket than they had at any time in recent history. It's something that is quite extraordinary. It's an ascension. These are not blips. This is an ascension.
I should mention the only subgroup that I saw that didn't go up, that was flat, were Republicans, but independents, again, everybody went up. The youth vote is something that every campaign says it's going to capture. They want it, but the youth vote can be very difficult to get in a sizable way. Are you seeing anything different here? I mean, you talked about 2018 and 2008, yes. Do you think that momentum stays here? And if it does stay here, is there a driving policy factor behind Kamala Harris to help those voters not just say they're enthusiastic, but actually go to the polls in November, John?
Yeah, I think three numbers in particular that I'm looking at in this new wave of polling are these attributes. Significant numbers of young people say she's listening, she cares about them, and that she's fighting for the things that they care about. So those are the qualities and attributes that young people seek in a modern president, and she's improving every single day on those things. Beyond that, younger people will want to see her values to ensure that they're aligned where they are, and I believe that they are, and then her vision for the future. So again, these are the earliest days. She has their attention. Many are helping her on social media lift up the excitement that they see across these rallies. But again, there's plenty of room to grow. She needs to grow. And again, aligning her values and her vision with the values and the vision of this generation will be what will, I think, extend this lead to get to from the mid-50s to 60% margin, which a 60% share, which is where she'll need to be.
Yeah, and I think it should be said that she can organically play on social media in a way that Joe Biden couldn't, and in a way that Donald Trump is now a step behind on as well, which I think is helping her among the youth vote as well. John Della Volpe, thank you so much. Mark Murray, Monica Alba, thank you guys as well.